Welcome everyone. I'm your host for today's webinar, Mike Lisecki. Again, welcome to the Orientation to the Community College Innovation Challenge Bootcamp. This webinar is brought to you by the National Science Foundation and the American Association of Community Colleges. You'll be in listen-only mode today for the event, but please use that chat window. We have 4 distinct question breaks built into the presentation. Use the window. Every question is a good one. It's my privilege now to introduce you to our presenters. Joining us in the background today, she doesn't have a speaking role, is Kate Lockhart. She's at the American Association of Community Colleges, and she will be in communication with you, and she has been already, about details about this event. But we wanted to introduce her so that you recognize her as you go forward. Joining us today is also Ellen House from the American Association of Community Colleges. She's the Director of Academic and Student Affairs there. Joining us as well is Joe Schreiber. He's the principal from Ninja Communications. He's got a lot of cool information to share with us today about the upcoming event. From the National Science Foundation is Kim Nelson. She's the Public Affairs Specialist, Office of Legislative and Public Affairs at the NSF. You'll hear from her in a few minutes. And now it's my pleasure to welcome our opening speaker, Susan Mason, the Senior Project Facilitator at the National Science Foundation. Susan, I'm going to click one slide forward. The webinar is yours. Susan, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mike, for everything, and congratulations to everybody who's on this call. I'm really impressed that we've probably got over 34 participants, so it looks like we've got a full house. As Mike tells you, I'm from the National Science Foundation, and we're really happy to be working with the American Association of Community Colleges. But I wanted to tell you a little something about the National Science Foundation before we start, if you didn't know. NSF is an independent federal agency created by Congress in 1950 to promote the progress of science, to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and to secure the national defense. NSF is vital because we support basic research and people to create knowledge that transforms the future. This type of support is a primary driver of the U.S. economy. It enhances national security and advances knowledge to sustain global leadership. Within an annual budget of $7.5 billion, we are funding source for approximately 24% of all federally supported basic research conducted by Americans' colleges and universities. In many fields such as mathematics, computer science, and social science, NSF is the major source of federal backing. We're excited about what has come out of the challenge so far and what's to come at the boot camp. And we're really excited to have the community colleges at the table talking about innovation. So today in the webinar, we plan to shed some light on what's to come at our boot camp and how you need to prepare. In this webinar, we'll cover our expectations, the basic layout of the boot camp, including what to expect at the Capitol Hill reception, the final judging process, and some logistics items. Then you'll have a chance to ask questions. So now I would like Kim to talk to you about the finalist teams and who will be joining you at the boot camp. Kim?
Thank you very much, Susan, and a very good afternoon, everyone, and a very happy Friday to you all. You all are the 4th CCIC cohort I've been lucky enough to work with, and this competition is truly the most rewarding project I manage at the National Science Foundation. You all went through a very competitive process to get here, and you should be very proud of yourselves to have arrived at this point. More than 24 field experts from the National Science Foundation and the American Association of Community Colleges thoroughly vetted your ideas and the science and technology feasibility behind those ideas. And since I know you are all probably wondering, you 10 teams represent the very best out of 41 submissions representing 234 individuals in the country. You are now joining a high caliber group of students who have made it to our finalist round and on to the Innovation Bootcamp. On these slides, you'll see all of the finalist teams whom you'll be meeting in June and the colleges they're from. Lastly, I'm so excited to learn more about your innovations and meet you all in person soon. Now I'd like to hand the baton off to Ellen Haas from AACC to give you an overview of the bootcamp. Ellen?
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Susan. And I would also like to add my congratulations to the teams on behalf of the American Association of Community Colleges. We are thrilled to be partnering with NSF on this challenge in the boot camp and are really excited to meet all of you in June. For those of you who may not be familiar with AACC, we are the primary advocacy organization for the nation's community colleges. The association represents nearly 1,200 two-year associate degree granting institutions and more than 12 million students. Our mission is to build a nation of learners by advancing America's community colleges. So again, on behalf of AACC, welcome and congratulations, and we look forward to seeing you in June. So before I get started, I wanted to get a quick sense of how many of you may be participating on this webinar with some of your colleagues. I saw in the chat box Electric Eagles and EasyCast, those teams are watching together. So if you're participating on this webinar with one or more of your team members, could you enter your college name or your project team name in the chat box and the number of people attending with you? And I have okay. Does audio sound okay now? Okay. Wonderful. Okay, great. I'm so excited to see that people are attending this webinar together and as teams. This is great. And I also wanted to introduce you to this chat box. As Mike indicated, please enter questions as they come in at any time, and we will address them on the question breaks. But again, we're happy to see that people are here attending. And even if you're attending alone, welcome, and we hope you'll share the information with your team members. As Mike indicated, this is recorded, so all should be viewing it, whether it's live or recorded, and we'll be circulating that link for the recording shortly after the webinar. Okay, so to move forward, we'll be providing a bootcamp overview today. We'll talk about the what, where, when, who, and why. So what is it? So the bootcamp, as mentioned earlier, is designed to provide a hands-on learning, technical assistance opportunity, and venue for the 10 finalist teams to test and validate their ideas with a focus on building innovation, entrepreneurship, and strategic communication skills. The event will be held at the Alexandrian Hotel in Alexandria, Virginia on June 11 through 14. And it is attended by the community college student teams and their faculty mentors. You're all required to attend. Your community and industry partners, their participation is optional. And in addition, we've assembled presenters and experts specializing in entrepreneurship, innovation, and strategic communication to deliver the bootcamp content, including past student participants of the challenge, as well as NSF program directors, and we'll talk about those specific partners shortly. NSF and AACC program staff will also be in attendance at the boot camp. As for the why to attend, besides the fact that it is required, I'm going to turn it back to Susan at NSF to talk to you about why you should attend the boot camp and also to give you some additional information on the boot camp content, expectations, and partners. Susan?
At the boot camp, you will network, you'll interact with experts, and receive coaching, mentoring, and guidance during your sessions and activities that will help you further validate, refine, develop, and potentially implement your novel solutions. The boot camp is designed to provide a hands-on learning opportunity to further develop your ideas with a focus on building innovation, entrepreneurship, and strategic communication skills. We believe this bootcamp offers a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to receive free expert advice that's intended to give you a leg up for your future. Plus, you'll get to meet stakeholders on Capitol Hill, interact with NSF and AACC staff, and most importantly, you're going to have a lot of fun in the nation's capital. And this year, we have a really unique opportunity for you. You'll be meeting members of the National Science Board. The National Science Board establishes the policies of the National Science Foundation within a framework of national policy set forth by the President and Congress. They serve as an independent body of advisors to both the President and the Congress on policy matters related to science and engineering and education in science and engineering. The board is made up of 25 members appointed by the President, and a handful of them plan to conduct a listening session with you all on the morning of the boot camp. They are really interested in what you, as community college students and faculty members, have to say about your unique experience and the skilled technical workforce. And for a sneak peek, one of the members who will be coming is Ellen Ochoa, a former astronaut and the director of the Johnson Space Center. So now I'm going to turn this back to Kim, who will kind of review what's going to happen at the boot camp. Kim?
Thank you very much, Susan. So you'll see on these slides, or on this slide, a very basic framework for your days. So we're just going to go day by day here. Follow along, please. So Monday is your arrival day, and it's also when boot camp festivities begin. We'll start the day at 11 a.m. following your registration session with a welcome session. Lunch will follow, where you'll listen to a moderated panel made up of past CCIC boot camp graduates, and then we'll hit the ground running with team introductions, some sessions on understanding your customer, signaling the value of your innovation, and design thinking. We'll also be holding a separate meeting for faculty mentors to discuss your special role at the boot camp. We will end Monday at 5:30 p.m. and let you all go find dinner on your own. On Tuesday, we'll begin early at 8:15 a.m. with breakfast, and this is when the National Science Board listening session Susan mentioned earlier will occur. Throughout Tuesday, you'll do a variety of things, including attending sessions that delve deeper into how to communicate the value of your innovation, including receiving valuable presentation coaching that will help prep you for the final presentation on Thursday. And then we'll wrap up the day around 6 p.m. We'll spend most of Wednesday applying what you've learned about on Tuesday and Monday by participating in mock customer discovery interviews with real NSF program officers. Our faculty mentors will, during your customer discovery session, meet in a separate room with NSF staff to learn more about NSF and potential funding opportunities for community colleges. You'll then be prepped for Capitol Hill later that day by someone from our legislative team within NSF's Office of Legislative and Public Affairs. With them, you'll learn about how to interact with a specific group of stakeholders. Prior to the Hill reception, we'll have a portion of our final judging take place, which we'll get into later in this webinar. Then we'll meet in the lobby in the afternoon and depart for a memorable evening on Capitol Hill. On Thursday, the final day, we'll debrief from the Hill event and then do some more prep for your final presentations. We'll then go forth with the final presentations, award ceremony, and then close with a fun reception to celebrate you all surviving the week. As you can see here, we have 4 full days filled with a lot of content, but also a lot of fun and some really amazing opportunities. And I hope you are all as excited as I am. So now I'm going to hand it back off to Susan and Joe to talk about the partners in the boot camp. Take it away, guys.
So hi, Joe. How are you doing today?
Never been better.
I want you guys to know that we've really put together a highly qualified, dynamic, and most importantly, entertaining group of session leaders for the various sessions at the boot camp. This boot camp is designed around the tenets of an NSF program called I-Core. This program teaches NSF grantees to identify valuable product opportunities that can emerge from academic research and offers entrepreneurship training to participants by combining experience and guidance from established entrepreneurs through a targeted curriculum. So from that program, we have Grant Warner. He's with DCI Core in Venture Accelerator. Joe Schreiber, who you'll hear from in a minute, is principal with Ninja Communications. And secondly, NSF program officers, AAAS fellows, and other staff. And I've worked with Joe for probably about the last 8 or 10 years, and I'm going to turn you over to him. He's going to talk to you about the judging process. So, Joe?
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, everyone, for joining in. And this is my favorite time of year, and as I can echo what Kim had said, she'd mentioned this is one of the most rewarding projects she works on, and I feel the same way. So why don't we get down to the nitty-gritty? And you see that slide on your screen, judging criteria. So here is where we can find out how a finalist team earns a spot in the winner's circle. So in a nutshell, to win the challenge, a team must distinguish itself during 2 marquee boot camp events. First, the Capitol Hill reception, which will be on June 13th, and then the final presentations on June the 14th. These 2 events, while they're both great fun and unparalleled learning opportunities, will also showcase each team's entrepreneurial savvy under vastly different circumstances. Here's how they differ. The first one, the Capitol Hill reception, challenges you to engage with important dignitaries and stakeholders while persuasively and, most importantly, extemporaneously signaling the value of your innovations through your displays and verbal interactions. The second, which is the final presentations, tests your ability to pitch the significance, merits, and worth of your innovations directly to the judges through a formal prepared presentations. Now, for each of these 2 activities, a distinguished jury of judges will evaluate and score each team using unique criteria established specifically for these separate showcases. So these individual event scores in turn will then be weighted. 55% for the Hill reception and 45% for the final presentation. And combined, they will produce the total scores that drive the judges' final decisions. Now remember, teams must perform well during both the Hill reception and the final presentations to win the challenge. So if you look on the slide, you can see some of the criteria that we'll be using to provide the judges how they're going to score you on their score sheets. And you can also download this information directly to your computer from the panel on the right side of your screen. So I'm not going to go through this point by point, but you can see it right there that this is how you will be judged. So to begin, be aware that the judges will make 2 visits to your displays during the Capitol Hill reception. You will not be present during the judges' initial visit. This is a time where the judges get a chance to have unfettered access to each display, and it enables them to score the displays without distractions or interference. Now, you will be present for the second visit. So this is when the judges come around in their second round, and they'll be focusing on the team itself and how well that team draws in and interacts with the visitors. So for the second stopover, the judges will be both spectators and participants. And not only will they be observing each team in action, but they'll also be diving in to ask questions and engage team members directly. And this is really a great chance for you to use some of the skills that you will have learned from the boot camp Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to be able to really hone your message when you're talking to these judges. And then the final presentations will take place back at the Alexandrian Hotel, where each team will make their pitches in front of the other finalist teams directly to the judges, much like a presentation you might make to gain budget or project approval. Now, I'll have more to say about the final presentations in a few minutes, but for now, let me turn the proceedings back over to Ellen.
Thank you, Joe. I think at this time we wanted to pause and see if there were any questions. We will go further into some of the logistics around registration, hotel and travel, Capitol Hill reception, a little bit more on judging. But just from this initial bit of orientation, are there any questions at this time?
Ellen, it's your moderator, Mike. There was a question from the audience. I'd like to address it to Kim first, but both she and Joe mentioned this. One of our student teams are not so familiar with the word stakeholders. I mean, what does that encompass when you use that word stakeholder? Kim, could you address that first?
Sure. That's a big question. So for NSF, these are folks that we seek to engage because we rely on them for support. So for example, for NSF, our stakeholders consist of the media, the taxpayers, so you, me, Congress, different entities like professional societies and intergovernmental groups like the Chamber of Commerce, and then of course the scientific community, which is our primary customer and who we fund. But you know, for the Hill event, these stakeholders will be members of Congress, potentially folks from the Office of Science and Technology Policy, folks from the White House's Office of American Innovation. And so all of these people that we rely on to keep this funding machine going. Joe, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
So I might ask you, from a what do you think, Joe? I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but put your hat on as a community college innovation team member. Who do you think their specific stakeholders were? Now that we have an idea of that term from Kim.
Yeah. So to put it on a really simple level, if you're going to ask, who is a stakeholder, and that's really asking a question: who has interest in your business? Who is most interested in the value that your innovation provides? Now, for going up on Capitol Hill, of course, it's the legislators themselves, and senators, congressmen, legislative assistants, anybody involved in the legislative process. But if you boil it down to a more local level, and when we actually do the actual presentations with a scenario that everyone has will be shown the criteria when it's delivered to you, it's the folks in that area who would most likely support and benefit from your innovation. So think about the nature of what the value of what your innovation provides, and who might benefit from it. And you want to specifically target those who could benefit from your innovation in a way that makes them want to support what you're doing. I hope that explains things a little bit better.
It does, Joe. Thanks very much. There's several other questions in the chat window, but we're going to address them at our next question break. I'm going to advance the slide right now, and let's go forward with these details.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I'd like to review some of the logistics around registration, hotel, and travel. So for your reference, this information can also be located in the finalist confirmation letters that were sent to you from Kate Lockhart on April 4th. A lot of this information is also on the website. In terms of registration for the boot camp is required for all student and faculty mentors of the 10 finalist teams. There are no registration fees for participants, though we do require you to sign up to attend. Community and industry partners are also welcome to attend, though certainly not required. If they do attend, they would need to fund their own travel and hotel to do so. So to register, please go to the event website located on the bottom of the slide. Hopefully a lot of you have done this already, and complete the team registration and hotel reservation form by May 11th. Also, one thing to note, when you pick up your name badge and your registration materials on the first day of the boot camp, you'll be asked to sign a model and photo release form because we take a lot of photos during the event. This gives us consent to use your image. If you have any issues with that, you can let us know on site and we can find a way to work around that. But just to make you aware that that'll be something you'll be completing on site. In terms of hotel reservations, lodging for the finalist teams will be held at the Alexandrian in Alexandria, Virginia. Note that AACC, we will make your hotel reservations for all boot camp participants. So please do not call the hotel and make your own reservations. When you fill out the team registration and hotel reservation form, be sure to indicate your arrival and departure dates as well as any room preferences, including if you're planning on sharing a room. Do note you're not required to share a room, but some student team members like to do so. So if you would like to share a room, please indicate that on your form so we can ensure we have everyone coded correctly. If you plan on bringing someone with you, a family member or a spouse to the event, please also indicate that as well so we know that there is someone else in your room. But do note that the boot camp itself is only open to participants. So if you have a family member traveling with you, they would not be able to attend the boot camp. However, they would be able to attend the Capitol Hill reception, and we would encourage them to attend that reception to see your work. Please also note that any travel expenses and arrangements for any accompanying family members would be your responsibility. In terms of hotel costs, again, AACC covers hotel costs for student team members and faculty mentors. We will cover you for up to 5 nights, June 10 through 14. Rooms for these nights will be billed directly to AACC's account, so they will not show up on your hotel bill. However, you will be required to present a credit card upon check-in to cover any incidental expenses that you may incur during your stay, such as room service. I also want to make you aware that if you plan on giving the hotel a debit card to cover your incidentals instead of a credit card, the hotel will place the $50 hold on your debit card at the time of check-in and then credit that amount back to you upon checkout if you did not incur any incidental expenses. And if any of you would like to come early or stay late to enjoy the Washington, D.C. area, you may do so and pay the cost of any additional room nights at the rate of $229 per night. AACC would still make your reservation. You would just indicate your arrival and departure dates. We would code the nights that we cover to our master account, and the credit card you supply upon check-in would cover any additional nights if you had reserved them. AACC will send hotel confirmations to each attendee once we've made the hotel reservations by mid-May. And if you have any changes or need to cancel, please contact AACC directly. All hotel changes need to go through AACC by contacting Kate Lockhart. In terms of travel arrangements, all participants are responsible for making their own travel arrangements to attend the boot camp. And AACC will support the cost of travel for student team members and faculty mentors, as well as reimburse round-trip travel expenses up to a maximum of $1,200 per person. As AACC will pay for your hotel accommodations separately, the maximum amount of $1,200 can be used to cover the cost of airfare and other reimbursable travel expenses such as ground transportation. So hopefully many of you have already made your air travel arrangements. As a reminder, you have 2 options for making air travel. You can contact AACC's travel agent and have the cost of airfare directly charged to AACC, or you're welcome to book your own travel and submit expenses to AACC for reimbursement. All travel arrangements need to be booked at an economy class fare by May 11th. Please note that AACC will not be responsible for overly high fares due to last-minute travel arrangements, so do book your travel accordingly. And for your reference, the closest airport to the hotel is Reagan National Airport, DCA, and the Alexandrian Hotel provides a free airport shuttle that you can call upon arrival. And for information on other area airports and detailed information on ground transportation and transit times, you can refer to the boot camp website or contact Kate directly with any questions. In terms of travel reimbursements, AACC will send out travel reimbursement forms when we send out your hotel confirmations, and we'll also have them available on site at the event and can answer any questions about filling them out. Just for your reference, other reimbursable expenses in that $1,200 cap, in addition to airfare, include train or bus fare, parking, mileage, and some of the other items listed on this slide. Please note that rental cars are not typically considered an allowable expense. We won't reimburse you for rental cars to drive instead of fly unless that rental car expense is lower than the comparable economy-based airfare. But however, we have had teams in the past rent a van and all come in together, and that certainly is much more economical than having 4 or 5 airline tickets. If you would like to go that route, again, please just contact Kate Lockhart or me ahead of time. We just need to approve you in advance for a rental car. So AACC, we will also reimburse you for meals that are not offered as part of the boot camp at rates that are set by the federal government through the U.S. General Services Administration for the area. So you can claim $16 for breakfast, $17 for lunch, and $31 for dinner if those meals are not offered at the event and are incurred as part of your travel. So for your reference, the boot camp will offer breakfast and lunch at the event as well as 2 light receptions. So if you're coming in Sunday night, you could claim $31 for dinner on Sunday, and you could claim $16 for breakfast on Monday, but you could not claim per diem for lunch since we are offering lunch to you on that date. Again, if you have any questions pertaining to travel or meals, you can contact Kate or me. And at this point, I want to address some questions since we just went over a lot of the logistics, and then from here we'll move on to addressing the Hill reception and team displays.
Ellen, thank you. There was a question about public transportation. Washington, D.C. is pretty famous for its metro system, and as the students can potentially use that to get around, is the metro safe? Can you take it? Should you be aware of anything?
Certainly, yes, the metro is safe. It is accessible. Certainly you would exercise caution in any new setting. But overall, it is a very safe system and can get you quite a few places in the city. So there is a metro. The hotel is not exactly metro accessible, but if you were downtown and you wanted to get around, you could certainly use the metro to do so.
Sure, that makes sense. You mentioned sharing rooms, and one of the questions that came into the chat is, can my industry partner share a room with me?
Yes, since we are not covering the costs of industry advisors in terms of travel, if they wanted to share a room with you, your room is covered, so that would certainly be allowable.
Good. You can see another question related to industry partners in the chat, and it says, if they attend, can they participate in the food functions?
Yes,
your industry partners.
Yes, they can participate in the food function. So there's no registration fees, and that would allow for the food function. It is just the hotel and travel that we would not provide.
Here's a funny question. Well, it's not really funny, but do I have to eat in the hotel? I mean, is there a McDonald's nearby that I can go out to?
You are actually, the boot camp is located in Old Town Alexandria, which is walking distance to a host of restaurants, differing price points. So we will also compile a restaurant list, so when you check in at registration, you'll know what's around the hotel that you can access. And we would encourage you to get out of the hotel. You're going to have plenty of meals at the hotel. So for those meals you have on your own, we would encourage you to see some of Old Town Alexandria, which is actually a very charming area, and you can even walk down to the water.
Cool. Ellen, I've got one more question during this break, and I'm going to turn to Joe for it. Joe, you can see the question in the chat. It says, does that mock interview prepare us for judging?
Yeah, I had my eye on that one. So the mock interviews actually aren't preparation for the judging. The mock interviews are done in relation to customer discovery, which Grant will talk about a little bit more on the upcoming webinar that we have. As far as preparing you for the judging, we're going to be coaching you on your presentations. So I mentioned that there's 2 areas where you'll be judged. One is the presentations for Capitol Hill, and the second one is for the formal presentations themselves. So let me take them one at a time. First of all, for the Capitol Hill presentations, we don't have rehearsals per se for that. What we do have are several sessions in the workshop where we dive into how to strategically compose, design, and deliver messages. And within those parts of the workshop, it will be quite interactive. Folks will have a chance to be able to sort of take a test drive for their own messages, and that will be sort of an opportunity to prepare you for things that you will be judged on for the Capitol Hill presentations. Now let's take the formal presentations themselves. Those are the 5-minute presentations. We've got some more details about them later on. We're going to have several sessions on how to create those presentations, but then you'll get a chance to actually rehearse them, and we'll record you, and then we'll provide feedback that will help you to be able to, or give you the opportunity to meet the criteria that the judges are looking for, and hopefully exceed it. So I hope that that helps everyone with that question.
It does. And thank you, Joe, for that. Ellen, I think we're going to move forward. We have another question break coming in. I know we'll be talking more about displays and things like that in a few minutes. So let's go forward, and then we'll have another question break.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to be talking now about the Capitol Hill reception and team displays. So this is a lot of information. I already see some questions coming in through chat on this. So hopefully this will clarify some of that. And again, we're happy to address the questions at the question break. So NSF and AACC, we're very pleased. We're going to be able to host a reception and display opportunity on Capitol Hill. This is kind of the highlight of the boot camp. It'll take place on Wednesday, June 13th from 5 to 7 p.m. We're still working on the location on Capitol Hill, and we'll share that as soon as it's available. Congressional members, STEM leaders, and key congressional staff are invited to meet with you and to learn about your projects. And this really is an exciting opportunity to try your hand at communicating to decision makers about your innovation and to show off all your work. So NSF and AACC are in the process of developing an online invitation for the Capitol Hill reception, which we will send your way. So you can also extend the invitation to your institution to send to any of your constituents that may be in the Washington, D.C. area. And note that NSF will send a letter to each of your senators and congressional representatives, alerting them to your selection as challenge winners or challenge finalists and the opportunity to attend the Capitol Hill reception, to meet with you, and to learn about your projects. And as Joe talked about, the reception is also part of the boot camp judging process. It will provide an opportunity for the judges to view your displays and to engage with you as part of the judging criteria for selecting the overall top 2 winning teams. Just to give you a couple pictures of the event, you'll see we have legislators here engaging with the teams, and you can get a sense of how some of the displays work. So these were from last year's event. And this is a rough schedule for the event. You were sent a detailed Capitol Hill reception display information guide with the April 4th correspondence. It is also all available on the website. As a matter of logistics, we will provide a shuttle bus to and from the hotel for CCIC participants. And this schedule might adjust forward or back just a little bit depending on when we finalize the rooms on the Hill. But this is roughly how it will go. You'll get over there. You'll have about an hour for setup. Then you'll actually leave the reception space, and the judges will come through and evaluate your displays without you present. Then the reception will have a 2-hour reception where you come back in and you will engage with all the stakeholders and the folks that have come in to see your work. And the judges will be looking at you as you're engaging with all of those visitors as well. Afterwards, we'll have a 45-minute period to break down, load up the bus, and return to the hotel. So I'd like to talk a little bit about preparing displays for your event. You'll want to think about them so they're visual, informative, and educational. You're going to want to ask yourself what someone is going to learn from your display and why should they care about your innovation. So models, computer models, prototypes, videos that run on a loop, these are all strongly encouraged. You'll also be asked to bring some graphics. We will supply you with a foam core board and tacks, but you're going to need to prepare some graphics to affix to the boards that communicate the team's community problem, research steps taken to study the problem, 2 or 3 main results from the research, and your proposed community solution. Again, this is outlined in the display guide. Other things that you can bring to your display, you can consider developing computer or virtual models. Virtual models demonstrate the project's reach and scope. So if you develop video slides or computer-generated graphic displays, we ask that you limit them to no more than 3 minutes in length, and they be designed to play on a loop. You can also bring in models or prototypes that will need to fit on your 6-foot table. They should be easy to set up and engage the viewing public in some hands-on interaction. Do note we're going to talk about shortly there are size and materials restrictions that each team will need to follow when packing and preparing their displays, and we'll go over that shortly. And to assist you in developing your display, NSF has issued $200 development grants to each team to give you some money to help with developing some of the materials that we're talking about. To access these, all the grants have or will be processed by NSF through the Faculty Mentors PayPal account. So if you haven't received yours as of yet, please contact Kim Nelson at NSF for assistance. And do note that you do not need to keep or submit the receipts for these $200 grants. Monies in the development grant, again, can be used to develop or prepare display items, or for the cost of shipping displays to the hotel in advance of the boot camp. I know there was a question on folks wanting to bring in tablets or computers, their own computers or tablets. Yes, you can bring in those materials. If you have a computer or a tablet or a phone, something you're demonstrating your display on, you're welcome to bring additional laptops to the event. So AACC will also provide certain materials to help you with your displays. Roughly, we'll give you an 8x10 display presentation space. I say roughly because it all depends on the size room we're given. But you will have a 6-foot draped table. We will give you an ID sign that will be affixed to the front of the table because we will not be allowed to put anything on the walls. And that ID sign will be your college name, your team name. And we will supply you with a trifold display board and tacks so you can assemble your graphics once on site. So those display boards will be on your tables when you arrive to the reception so you can affix them. We also will provide you with access to electricity, and if you request it through your display form, we can also give you a laptop computer and a 17-inch screen monitor. We do want to note that internet is not provided, so you'll want to arrange your display so they don't rely on an internet connection. Since we don't know where the reception will be held, and even then it's not given there's internet access in some of these rooms, we can't guarantee that connectivity, so we ask you to prepare your displays keeping in mind there would not be an internet connection. And this is what we're talking about in terms of space. You can get a sense, this was 2 years ago where we had a very large room, so the teams were able to spread out a bit, but you can get a sense of the size of the display boards and monitors and tables. And this was last year where we were a little bit more cozy, but actually there's a lot of pluses to having a cozy reception. It's always very populated. We had a lot of folks coming through and there's great energy in the room. But you can get a sense of the flexibility of having to put the poster board behind the table as opposed to next to the table. But all the display elements are there and you can get a sense of what these displays look like and how the reception comes together. So I want to talk just a bit about transportation of displays. So to get your displays to the event, you'll want to bring your display items from home with you as checked luggage, or you may ship it ahead of time to the hotel. So instructions for shipping displays to the hotel are on the website and included in the guidelines, but you can ship them to Kate Lockhart's attention at the hotel to arrive no earlier than June 6th and no later than June 12th. And you would need to use a reputable carrier such as UPS or FedEx so we can ensure and track delivery. And again, that $200 display grant can be used to cover the cost of shipping. All shipped materials will be placed in a holding area and brought out to the main lobby for pickup and transporting to the bus for the Capitol Hill reception on Wednesday, June 13th. And your team will be responsible for collecting your shipped materials from the lobby and transporting your materials from the hotel onto the bus and to the Capitol Hill for setup. So when packing your displays, you'll want to be mindful that each team is going to be responsible for transporting any bags or boxes needed for their displays from the hotel onto the bus into Capitol Hill. And sometimes, depending on the location, it can be a couple blocks walk because where they have to stage the buses to the reception site. So you want to be thinking about how you're transporting these items. And before entering the Capitol building, all participants will be screened by a magnetometer, and all display items that are permitted inside the building will be screened by an X-ray device. So you want to think it's very similar to going through airport security. And note the size and materials restrictions for what can be brought into Capitol Hill. The dimensions here are listed on the site, so no bags or boxes that exceed these dimensions are allowed in the building. If you're planning to bring display materials or working on a prototype, again, all materials will need to fit into a bag or box size of these dimensions in order to be permitted into the building. But there's no restriction on how many boxes you can bring in. So you can bring in more than one bag or box of this size, provided your team can transport them yourself. Again, it just the individual items can be no larger than the measurements provided here. As teams are responsible for carrying their display items from the hotel to the bus and onto Capitol Hill, and again, back onto the bus following the event to get them back. Again, we want you to be thoughtful about packing materials and supplies for the event and mindful of size restrictions. And in addition to size restrictions, there are also items that are prohibited to be brought into Capitol buildings. They're also listed in the display guidelines. Again, think going through airport security. So no liquids or aerosols, any pointed objects such as knitting needles or letter openers, so pens and pencils are permitted. Obviously no weapons, mace, pepper spray, razors, or box cutters. Do note AACC, we will have box cutters and some basic assembly tools available, so AACC will have that in the Hill, so you don't need to worry about getting tools in if you require assembly tools. In fact, we want to make sure you don't bring those items through as they won't be allowed, but we will have some of those materials on site for your use if they're needed. A note on team displays and student original work. So all display and presentation elements must be the original work of the student team members. However, certainly college logos and official college images are acceptable to use for the displays. And following the reception, teams are responsible for repacking their materials for return shipping. AACC will provide return prepaid shipping labels on site at the reception that teams will be required to fill out and attach to their boxes if you'd like to ship them back. And again, we'll cover costs for return shipping. And each team is responsible for carrying their materials back to the bus for return transport to the hotel. And since we're out on Capitol Hill, if you'd like to stay out on Capitol Hill, you can either return with us on the bus, or you can get your materials to the bus, let us know, and then stay out in Capitol Hill to enjoy the evening. AACC will be responsible for transporting any items placed on the bus back to the hotel. If you have items that have already been labeled for shipping, we'll take care of getting them shipped out. Any other items that you're going to transport back as checked luggage, we'll provide them with a luggage tag, and you can retrieve them from the bell stand when you return to the hotel. And any teams electing to stay out in the Capitol Hill area following the reception that don't wish to return on the shuttle bus should just check in with staff, and you would also be reimbursed for cab or metro fare home as part of your travel expense reimbursement. And in order to get all this done, we need you to fill out your display information forms, and those are due on May 11th. You'll be required to fill those out. You need to indicate what you would like provided for your booth, if you'd like a laptop, if you'd like a monitor. You need to detail what you're bringing to the event. We look at that and we make sure that everything you're bringing, and we supply that list to Capitol Police. We want to make sure there are no unallowable items and there's no hang-ups through security. So we do require you to list everything that you are going to be bringing as part of your display. And also we ask you to provide a display abstract, and there are samples on our website, but that goes into the program. We have a specific event program just for the Hill reception. So you'll want to write an abstract that encapsulates your display and your innovation. And now that I think I've talked a whole lot, I would like to see if there are any questions on the Capitol Hill reception.
Ellen, there is, and it has to do with that format of the presentations. You can see the question in the chat: should Should they, or are they required to follow a format style such as APA type of formatting, or is there a bit more flexibility in the style of what's written on the presentations?
You know, we don't formally dictate what style you can use. I don't know, Kim, did you want to comment on that? We've given more freedom and latitude with how you use that, but Kim, does NSF follow APA?
Well, we do follow Associated Press style because we're out of the Office of Legislative and Public Affairs, but that said, you do not need to follow any particular style. We just encourage you to use clear, concise language and consider the audience of who's going to be at the event. Likely these are not going to be subject matter experts, so please just keep that in mind.
Thank you.
You know, Kim and Ellen, if you look at the pictures that you're showing right now, you can actually, there's some good information there, right? Some teams have brought some prototypes. You can see them. You can see their posters in the background. You can see the drapes on some of the tables. It gives you a sense of it, but I do know, if I could make my own opinion here, sometimes on your presentation, less is more. You want to talk to the people as opposed to them reading words on your signs. Wouldn't you say so, Kim?
Yeah, absolutely. You're preaching to the choir here, but yeah, for sure. More images is better. Less text is always better. So,
right,
correct.
Right. Ellen, another question for you. You mentioned the use of college logos is okay, but what about, you know, like typically, I know at our college we have a standard 8-foot table drape with our college logo on it. We can bring that as well.
We have had colleges bring that in the past, as long as you can't put anything on the walls, but if it's a drape for the table. But do know that we have standard signs that we will be affixing to the front of that table, so that, as we have to do for all of the tables, so that may, however your drape is, that may actually go over your drape. But those signs are required to be on the front of each table. Those
drapes are sort of heavy and bulky too. Well, anyhow, just
yeah, and I will say that the tables will all be draped, and we will have ID signs on it. So if you have limited space, I would say bring your college branded brochures rather than a drape, since your team will already be identified by our sign.
How many of those brochures should we plan on handing out? 30, 50? 400?
I think 30 to 50 would be a good, not knowing not everyone will pick it up, but we typically have a attendance of about 150 people. Okay,
I would guess something in the 30, 40 range sounds about right for that. No sense in bringing a lot of paper, right? That's the idea. Am I limited to $200? I know I'm only getting $200 by this grant, but can I spend more than $200 on my display?
No, we actually ask that you keep the spending to $200, just so it's equitable across the board, so we don't have some teams expending thousands of dollars on a display. So we ask everybody to keep it in the $200 range.
Last question, and then we'll move on. You mentioned getting reimbursed potentially for public transportation or taxi. What about an Uber reimbursement?
Absolutely. An Uber reimbursement is also acceptable. You would just need to submit your receipts with your travel expense reimbursement form.
Perfect. Thanks, Ellen. Let's go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I think turning it over to Joe.
Thank you, Ellen. All right, so earlier we provided general guidance about the criteria the judges will use in scoring the challenge, and we indicated to you, if you recall, that 55% of your final scores will be based on the Capitol Hill displays and reception, while 45% will derive from the final presentations. So to fill you in a bit more, though, let me expand on how the final presentations will proceed. So ahead of its final presentation, each finalist team must select a designated spokesperson to deliver the team's presentation. And then when the time comes for the final presentations, the entire finalist team will join that one person in front of the room. And the reason for that will become apparent in a moment. So once you're all situated in front of the room, the designated spokesperson will give the team's 5-minute presentation. Now bear in mind that the final presentations must strictly adhere to the 5-minute time limit. Any spokesperson who exceeds 5 minutes 5 minutes will be politely cut off, and I mean cut off. It's over after 5 minutes. Now, during the final presentations, the judges will be paying keen attention and carefully listening to ensure that the spokespersons clearly identify the societal problem, need, or opportunity that the innovation addresses. Crisply explain how the innovation distinctively solves the problem, meets the need, or pursues the opportunity. Compellingly speaks to how society will benefit as a result. Directly urge listeners to support further development of the idea, and persuasively convey a complete story that affirms the innovation's value and marketplace viability. Then, at the conclusion of each presentation, the judges will be invited to question team members about the team's innovation. Now, this explains the presence of the full team at the front of the room. Every team member should be prepared to answer questions put to him or her by the judges. So, to paint a clear picture of this, imagine the whole team's up in front of the room. You've got one spokesperson delivering the 5-minute presentation. They're all done, and then the judges are going to start firing away questions. Each one of you needs to be prepared to answer those questions. Whoever's most adept at answering a particular question might raise their hand, or someone might be called on. So you want to be prepared. Now, each team may provide only one digital still image to use as a backdrop for its 5-minute presentation. So you want to carefully choose an image that captures the essence of your innovation, as no other visual displays will be permitted. So that's a challenge. I mean, what is the one image, only one image, that captures the essence of what you're trying to communicate? Now, finally, these guidelines, as well as the general criteria we reviewed earlier, are posted on the event site. They'll also be included in the information packet containing hotel confirmation letters and the event agenda, and we'll go over it again on site for sure. Now, most importantly, during the boot camp, you'll be receiving training, tips, and secrets, as well as individualized coaching that will help you confidently and convincingly communicate your innovation and its value during the Hill reception and final presentations. You'll also have the opportunity to practice, as I mentioned earlier, before delivering your final presentations on June the 14th. Now, in a moment, I'll return one more time to talk further about what you can expect during the boot camp, but before that, here's Ellen with a few more helpful details.
Thanks, Joe. So to help you with packing, we wanted to suggest the following attire for the event. So basically business casual throughout the week of the boot camp at the Alexandrian Hotel. A lot of teams wear their logoed college shirts. Those are acceptable, and some teams even use those for the Capitol Hill reception. And we do request business attire for Capitol Hill displays and reception on Wednesday. And when you come down on Wednesday for the boot camp, we're going to ask you to be dressed and ready to go to the reception, because there's not a lot of time in between. We'll be doing boot camp content, getting you ready for the reception, boarding the bus, and leaving. And we'll remind you of that once we're on site as well. In terms of evaluation, we also want to make you aware that as part of the evaluation of the boot camp, NSF will issue a pre-event survey and a survey following the event to gauge your experience and the impact of the boot camp on you and your proposed projects. So we'll be actually sending out the pre-survey before the event. If you don't complete it before the event, we're going to ask you to complete it before the start of the event on site. And we thank you in advance for your time and feedback in responding to these important surveys. They're really important as we work to improve these events. All right, now let me pass it back to Joe, who will go over some boot camp resources and review some expectations.
Sorry about that. We moved quickly on the slides there. So thank you very much, Ellen. And as we look ahead to the boot camp, I'm going to share a few final thoughts from my perspective on what is to come, as well as clue you in on some resources that you can take advantage of as you continue your boot camp preparations. Now, to earn your way into the group of finalists, your innovations ran a whole gauntlet of scientific assessment as they were vetted for their feasibility, viability, and scientific merit. And that's no mean feat in of itself, so you can and should be justifiably proud for having passed muster as a CCIC finalist. But becoming a finalist marks only a launching point for this CCIC journey. There's much more to come here. So until now, each team has largely been looking inward, focusing on problem identification, ideation, solution development, including the science behind your ideas, resource management, solution design, and maybe even some prototyping and fabrication. And between now and the boot camp, you'll continue addressing these aspects of your innovation while continuing to receive coaching from your NSF science mentors. But starting now, and most certainly during the boot camp itself, the focus will shift. Over the next few weeks, and especially during the boot camp, you'll be turning your gaze more and more outward as you begin peering into the far broader and sometimes chaotic, always intriguing innovation ecosystem and start exploring the concepts, ideas, and disciplines by which novel ideas become the successful products and processes that materially benefit people and society. Now, along the way, you're going to discover and come to understand concepts and skills like these: lean startups, the business model canvas, design-centered thinking, value propositions, pitching and signaling value, identity creation and brand development, and something called customer discovery. In fact, customer discovery is so central to the process that sees ideas become society-benefiting breakthroughs that the entire next webinar, which is coming up this coming Tuesday, April 24th, deals exclusively with what is, how to do it, and the customer discovery effort you're expected to undertake before arriving at the boot camp. But you needn't wait for April 24th to start exploring customer discovery. You can get a head start on the webinar by watching 3 short videos that address the pre-planning and customer interview process. So you can see these links to the videos as well as links to all the boot camp resources. They're all posted on the AACC's website at the web address that you see here on the slide. Now, before turning this over to Ellen and wrap things up, let me simply say that for all of us, and especially the entire instructor team, we look forward to meeting and working with each of you. You know, Susan had mentioned earlier that, you know, we've been working together. It's actually been almost 8 years. And with Kim, we've traveled all across the country, done close to 50 workshops over the last 8 years or so. And I can tell you this unequivocally, this is my favorite one. I cannot wait to meet all of you. You folks inspire me, you inspire us, and we're really looking forward to this. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to you, Ellen.
Thanks, Joe. Some important dates coming up. As Joe referenced, the Orientation to Customer Discovery webinar. We'll go into that concept and give you a little bit of homework to get you prepared for the boot camp. That is on Tuesday, April 24th. And then the deadline for the team meeting and hotel registration form to book your airline travel and to submit your display information form is Friday, May 11th. And now this was last year's teams, all excited at the Capitol Hill reception. We'd like to see if there are any final questions before we share final contact information and a post-webinar survey. Mike, do we have any final questions?
Yes, Ellen, just a few. By looking at these folks on the stairway here, I think I know the answer to this, but several people said, what is, you mentioned business attire. For men, does that mean a tie or a jacket and a tie? For women, does it mean slacks or a dress? I guess we can sort of see in this picture, can't we?
You can sort of see in this picture, business attire, there's a combination of a lot of folks, a lot of men will wear suits or ties, but you'll also see colleges wear their colored shirts, but with trousers tucked in. You know, the key here is to look professional. And that,
yes.
you know, we can vary a little on that, but most women are wearing trousers or dresses for the Capitol Hill reception, and the men you can see here is a little bit of a mix, but certainly very professionally dressed.
Okay, excellent, excellent. After listening to Joe, not only is he excited, but I'm excited about this event, and he thinks this is the best thing. I think it will be too. It looks really great. You know what struck me, Ellen, and I was surprised, the smallest box you can ship is 18 by 14 or so. That's not a very big box. We should watch out for that.
It is not a very big box, but we've managed to do it. People get creative. You know, they bring it in their checked luggage, and everybody brings in a bag or everybody brings in a laptop and puts it through security, and they make it work. And the big items such as the poster boards, AACC, you know, we provide that, so you don't have to worry about getting things that big through security, you know, because we would obviously hit some issues there. So folks, they managed to do it. It's really amazing.
Good. Kim, I have a question for you from the audience, and thank you for your detailed response in the chat window. I want to emphasize what you said, that all participants are required to attend all of the activities associated with this boot camp. But yet, it seems like if our teams are in Washington, it is an ideal time to try to connect with our representatives. Do you have any suggestions of how we can do that? Now, we agree we'll be at all of the boot camp activities, but what outside of that? How do we make a connection with our representatives?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I mean, we totally understand that sentiment. I just want to reiterate, please make sure to let them know about your status as a CCIC finalist. If you are having trouble identifying who your congresspeople are, we can send you a reference sheet and some contact information. So just letting them know that you're coming, encouraging them to come to the event, following up with them afterwards. We'll have a press release go out announcing the first and second place winners following the event. We already have a press release that went out with your college and team name announcing the finalist teams. Send that to them. So really just opening that line of communication. And then we also encourage you to engage your local media. So anything that really comes out into the public or anything you can send to them, just send that out to them to let them know of your great accomplishment.
Cool. Excellent response. Thanks. Ellen, I'm going to move us forward. The one slide, I think that's our contact slide. So you've talked about a lot of details today, but really Kate is a great resource for this, isn't she, Ellen?
Yes, Kate Lockhart is the kind of the logistics guru for the event, and she's the one sending out the correspondence around the boot camp. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email, to call her. Anything she can't answer, she knows where to funnel to get you the information that you need. So listed here is the Event Bootcamp website, which is the AACC site, and then NSF site where you applied, where the press release is, and just some sites that you have to have all the information about the challenge itself.
All right, cool. Now, Ellen, for you and your colleagues, these are the final questions, the most, well, maybe they're not the most important ones, but they're interesting ones. Ellen, what's your favorite place to visit in D.C., you know, from a tourist standpoint, a monument or one of those places? Where do you like to go the best? Where would you think people should go?
Yeah, that's a tough one, but I really enjoy the memorials, the Lincoln Memorial, the Vietnam War Memorial, and seeing those at night, which if you are on Capitol Hill and you get a chance to after the reception, they're very dramatic, they're very inspiring, and that's something not to miss if you can make it over there.
That's good. I remember standing outside of the White House, you know, the fence around it at night, 10 o'clock at night with the White House all lit up. It's a pretty amazing thing just to stand there. What about you, Kim? What do you like to do if you've got a visitor to town? Where do you take them?
Well, the DC food scene is quite wonderful. So that night you'll be on Capitol Hill. Definitely check out some local restaurants if you decide to stick downtown for the evening. And some great resources would be Washingtonian Magazine, DC Eater, Yelp, of course. But there's some great restaurants for foodies out there. And I love the museums. So if you're sticking around on the weekend, the Hirshhorn Museum is one of my favorite art museums around. So we've got some great free places to go in the area.
There is a lot of free stuff, isn't there, as I recall?
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Joe? Well, question for you. Where would you bring your guest?
Oh, well, first of all, I have to echo the what Ellen said about the monuments. You get that feeling of awe when you're around them that you do when you're out of the national park. It's that majestic and inspiring, and it's amazing how much DC has changed over the last 30 years. When I first got there 30 years ago. Kim mentioned it's a great place for foodies. It wasn't back then. It is now. There are so many cool little neighborhoods to go in. You don't have to dig deep into your pockets for a lot of these places, and cool little breweries too, and those kinds of things. Not that everybody can go there who's not of age, but just real neat places.
Excellent. Let me turn for that final comment to Susan. Susan, if you've got a visitor, where do you take them in DC?
Well, they're at a wonderful place. They're in Alexandria in Old Town, and there's a lot of great restaurants down there, and there's the waterfront. So they're really in an ideal situation, and very walkable. So there's great restaurants in that area, and like Joe said, breweries and the waterfront, and a lot of shops and things. So it's
Excellent.
a really
So,
fun place to
I don't know.
be located.
All of us have talked about the details of the challenge and the boot camp and things like that. But boy, just being there and being part of this whole thing to me just sounds exciting. So I know we're all looking forward to that. As we wrap up today, thank you very much, participants, for attending, and presenters. Just really appreciate the level of information that you were able to convey today. I know there's a lot of details. Again, Kate Lockhart is a good resource. You see her name on the screen. As we exit today, we're going to officially end the webinar now. I'm going to turn off the audio, but I'm going to put up on the screen now a very brief survey. And we would like you and your teams, either as a team or individually, to click on the survey. That helps us refine this webinar for other teams, helps us improve our own processes. So I'm going to do that right now, and then I'll formally sign off. So hold on just a second. Let's get that survey thing up here. You'll see this open in another window on most of your browsers. In some cases, it may not open. Sometimes a Mac has a little trouble opening this thing, so I'm going to put the link in the chat window as well. So I'm going to echo the comments. Let's see, there's in the chat window. Okay. I'm going to echo the comments of our participants and thank again Susan, Ellen, Kim, and Joe for their excellent presentation today. Friends, we look forward to seeing you next week for that webinar that was mentioned on Tuesday. And this officially ends our webinar today. Goodbye, everyone.